In this video, we're going to talk about sorting and comparing objects, describing measurable attributes, and the difference between two-dimensional and three-dimensional shapes. These are all important skills because they help to build the foundation for scientific literacy and math knowledge in the areas of geometry and algebra. So the first thing we want to do when we're talking about sorting and comparing objects and discussing measurable attributes is get ourselves a collection of objects. I have some finger puppets. I have a rabbit and a bear and a bird, it's a cardinal, and another bird, this is a penguin. I have some cars and I have some blocks. So we could start by sorting all of these objects together because they are all toys. We could then talk about the ways in which they are a little bit different. These have wheels. These have these little nubby things on top. These are soft. So those are measurable attributes, right? You could talk about how much they weigh. You could talk about how long they are. If you have a ruler, you can get things out and measure them. You can talk about their color. So we could sort these by color. So this one's red and this one's red and that one's red. So those would go together. So we have things that are red and things that are not red. There's a lot of different ways to sort and compare objects, and what you want to do when your child is sorting and comparing is you want to encourage them to look beyond their first sorting inclination. So their first sorting inclination might be to separate all these out because these are different kinds of things. But you can ask them questions like, how are they the same? Is there anything about them that is the same? Is there anything about them that is different? How are they used? You could sort them out by these are birds and these are not birds. So the thing about sorting is there's really no wrong way to go about it, and there are infinite possibilities. What we're trying to do is build up the ability to think about objects and think about them beyond just this is a car. And that will help them when they are faced with a bigger problem. It will help them to break things down and see each individual attribute of the problem in front of them. So that is sorting and comparing and talking about measurable attributes like weight, height, function. The next thing, the thing that really surprised me when my kids started kindergarten was that children are expected to know the difference between two-dimensional and three-dimensional objects. So they need to know a square, but they also need to know a cube. Right? They need to know a circle. They also need to know a sphere. Right? There's a triangle and there's a cone. So the easiest way to practice this one at home is to use the three-dimensional language when you're using three-dimensional objects. So you can say, I like your cone party hat, or the shape of this ice cream cone is a cone. Spheres are balls. Those are pretty easy, pretty accessible. Cubes, the smaller tissue boxes are usually cubes. A longer rectangle is a rectangular prism. So as long as you have the basics, cube, sphere, and cone, you should be okay. If your child is still struggling with shape names, one of my favorite things to do is to incorporate as many senses as possible. So this is a piece of paper I printed off the internet, right? We have triangle, circle, square, oval, rectangle, rhombus, and then I've just laminated it, which you can get done at any office supply store. And then we have Play-Doh. And so if you can encourage your child to get the Play-Doh out and make these shapes, what'll happen is, because we are using multiple senses here, I'm using my sense of touch and my sense of smell. Play-Doh has a smell, doesn't it? Along with the names here that I can see printed. And I can take my Play-Doh snake and I can follow this line and I can make a circle, right? And all of this, the more senses you can engage, the better it'll be. I would say make sure that we know our two-dimensional shapes before we move on to our three-dimensional shapes. That one is probably the trickiest. But overall, I think that the sorting and comparing is pretty easy to do. If you have a ruler at home, get that out. Kids love to use a ruler. If you have a kitchen scale, that can be a lot of fun. They can weigh their toys and see which one weighs more and which one weighs less. And playing with the 2D and 3D shapes, just make sure that you're pointing out shapes when you see them. So a window is a rectangle, a stop sign is an octagon. These are all things that you can do in your everyday life that don't take extra effort on our part, just to make sure that your kids have this content knowledge and that they feel confident and ready to go forward into kindergarten. I hope this video was helpful, and I hope we'll see you next time.